Their sweet conversation was interrupted by a blow from the sky, as if something heavy had fallen from a great height, smashing into the ground. The guards stirred, trying to make out in the dust what was going on and who had come to them. The star arrived to sign autographs, Hyun-woo holding his guide tightly, clods of dirt and dust raining down from above. "This is the very place where he had an appointment for tea," he asked his guide. The one fawned like a beaten dog and nodded his head. If he had a tail, he would have wagged it. The door guards were slow to realize what was happening. They were asking the right questions. Where was the first team? They couldn't understand that real men don't need an escort. They come on their own. There was a distant thud in the thick walls of the bunker as if from a blow.
"The sound came from somewhere above," reported a junior henchman.
The source of the noise was getting closer, and they realized that the sound was coming from inside the elevator shaft. The door exploded with a flash of light and a body flew into the hallway. All of the bunker's servants stood at attention, waiting for the unknown enemy to attack. The steel doors of the elevator collapsed, and a man entered the room without an invitation card, but in a tracksuit and flip-flops. Hyun-woo looked around the interior of the actual villain base, and he really liked it. He immediately estimated the cost of the capital work to set up the bunker. The guild had plenty of money, and a little more. The first henchman demanded the intruder introduce himself, foolishly holding up his sword. Hyun-woo smiled. He was anticipating a long autograph ceremony. In anticipation, he ignited an aura of darkness and moved ominously towards the future fan base. In the treatment rooms of the Mountain Forest Sanatorium, there was the whole range of instruments and exercise machines necessary for rehabilitation. There was also a patient with a full course of dental therapy, nail massages, and cautery. Aesculapius healed the girl with the skull tattoo to the point of exhaustion. She had already undergone quite a few courses of their therapy. Hook Seong-woo personally interrogated the victim, demanding that he give up valuable information. He pressured her morally, telling her that her fellow PED guildmates had long ago given up on her. No one would come to her aid. "If she doesn't talk, she'll die." Aries' boss kept trying to get the stubborn girl to talk. He offered to give her away her friends, receiving a generous reward and her life in return. But the girl captive remained speechless. Her gaze remained misty, but she would not give up. Hook Seong-woo, completely unskilled at interrogation, quickly lost his temper. The girl hadn't stabbed herself in weeks. Empty threats couldn't touch her. She had accepted her death long ago. The henchmen asked the boss if they could kill her in that case. Hook Seong-woo told them to do what they want. She's a useless witness anyway, since she's not talking. The local orderlies nodded happily. Now they could have no fear if their toy accidentally broke. During these days of the week, the sadistic henchman had grown accustomed to his prey. Now he had gained complete power over it. A happy line of Hyun-woo fans stretched out on the floor of the bunker, with a personal autograph prominently displayed from Hyun-woo. Hook Seong froze. He wanted an autograph too, but he didn't have time, and now he found it difficult to act. A blade with a cobra head-shaped blade glinted in the dungeon's semi-darkness. The desperate henchman lunged at the mad hunter with some sort of pitchfork. Hyun-woo could have been signing autographs all day. He easily dodged a punch to the neck area and signed off with a straight funeral leg kick to the stomach of another fan. The text message reached the addressee and he lay down to rest after a hard day's work. Hyun-woo was puzzled. He was invited to tea, but there was no tea. Not even the teapot was fired up. Hook Seong-woo was already wishing he'd made a black-bye tea with buns. The remaining henchmen also froze in indecision. They didn't even have cups. The director was biding his time. Every second could save the situation. He was desperately looking for a way out. The strength of the enemy in front of him surpassed the A rank. There was no doubt about it. The only people in the bunker were rank B plus minions, and rank A plus assassin cosplayers. The very best assassins that close to the S rank went as part of the first team for Hyun-woo. At the moment, the director didn't have any assets that could handle the mad hermit and plug the gap. He had handled the big cleavage alone, after all. He hated to admit it, but her boss was strong, Hook Seong-woo pondered. His enemy was definitely worthy of S rank. The unarmed guild leader clenched his fists. Even more than just S rank, Mad Hunter was definitely at the top of their list. There are hundreds of names on the list. The world is huge. Huksong had barely reached the middle with great difficulty, weighing his strength. The Mad Hunter got tired of waiting and called out to his opponents. If there was no tea, then everyone would get an autograph. Huxiong broke away from his musings. Still, his defeat was obvious. Now the bargaining would begin. Hyunwoo rushed him into a decision. Only 2 chairs, one with tea and one with autographs. Whichever one you sit on, whichever one you offer to your friends. Huksong flared up due to his youth. He could hardly contain his wounded pride. But clenched his teeth and bit his tongue. I'd have to drink tea, even if the bunker only had coffee. He chose to negotiate. As long as there is hope to reduce losses, pride should be set aside. With a man whose power was incalculable, they sat down at the table. Huxiong waited. Every situation had its advantages and disadvantages. It was necessary to learn more about the enemy while there was a chance. Hyunwoo sat down at the table and started the conversation first. He spoke from a position of strength and could demand anything he wanted. It's about time we demanded from the insolent director of Ares. Compensation loser pays. Heuk Seung-woo swam. He looked like a fool. He was having trouble thinking due to his excitement. This was the first time he was sitting at the table like a beaten dog. Hyunwoo asked if the man was deaf and made his demands for all the damage he had done. He began by attempting a murder in the swamps, where he was accosted by Sean Gunn, and about today's group assassination attempt on him, which couldn't be called routine. The Mad Hermit also demanded compensation for libel in the media and moral damages. Did Ares think they'd get away with it? The Hermit wondered. Bidding began. Huksoon asked how much compensation we were talking about. Hyunwoo's appetite was big, 10 billion, and a few entry-level dungeons, which was more important than money. Hyuksong was taken aback. He wasn't prepared for such a loss. He wasn't prepared for a loss at all today. He was going to win. A fist struck the table. The future of the Korean branch of the Ares Guild was at stake. Heuk Song-woo vehemently rejected such crazy demands, considering them overstated. But Hyunwoo just brushed aside these objections. He knew that the Ares Guild had enough money. The lack of resources didn't work. The brash hermit realized that the guild wasn't poor. Money could be easily collected, it just took time. But entry-level dungeon rights is a different matter altogether. Hyunwoo, seeing the director's confusion, threatened to increase the amount by another 5 billion if he hesitated. Hook Seong once again had to swallow everything as it was. He was completely in the hands of the enemy. But still decided to play diplomacy. Maybe they could come to an agreement. He asked the hermit why he didn't join the guild if he needed money. By joining the guild, he would have gotten money, power, and dungeons anyway, and he, Hukshong, could guarantee him that. Hyunwoo was surprised at the sudden attempt at direct bribery. The office plankton had gone completely brain-dead, he thought. Why be enemies when you can cooperate favorably? Hyuk Seong-woo continued. But his words elicited only contempt from the hermit. His enemies were just pathetic cockroaches. They're negotiations. It's not a deal but a surrender. Why the unnecessary words? Asked Director Hyunwoo. On top of that, he demanded a prisoner because he could. All jackals are similar to each other. Hyunwoo snickered at Director Hyukseo. They think they're cool, they're in a pack, and they're always saying the same thing. Ares, 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 the hermit continued. But against true strength, even a powerful guild is nothing to Hyunwoo. Huksong was once again trying to move to threats. After all, there were other guild branches. Wasn't this newcomer a bit overconfident? But Hyunwoo simply cut off these attempts to stall for time and demanded a straight answer. Either accept his terms or die here and now. There was no third way. He stood up confidently from the table, signaling that the negotiations were over. Huksong squeezed his pride and pushed it deep inside. There was nothing else he could do about it. Late in the evening, Hyunwoo returned to Shi Kyung's apartment, where he was staying for free. Shuriken met him in the living room where he was watching the evening news, but a glance at his friend silenced him. He saw something incompatible with each other. Water and oil, ice and flame, something that could not exist in nature. Hyunwoo, part-time crazy hermit, came home late at night with an unknown girl in the same dress. A crimson sky blanketed the ruined castle, the fire still blazing around it. A lone warrior walked among the ruins. the wind chasing his long black hair. The smoke of the conflagration enveloped everything around. The warrior contemplated the scene. A tower of Babel loomed before him, as tall as the sky, its thin spire lost in the clouds. The warrior looked carefully at the structure. It was the 9th floor. Early in the morning, Shiken's apartment was buzzing with heated discussions, the aftermath of the night. Hyunwoo told him how much money he'd gotten from the greedy director Aries, and that the girl came with it. Shikyung was amazed that the greedy bastard Hyuk Seong-woo had given everything away, but Hyunwoo replied that he had no choice. The always cautious Shurke shifted his gaze to the girl and asked who she was. The mad hermit declared that the girl is a valuable hostage, and when she comes to her senses, he must question her. But he wouldn't tell me exactly what it was about, citing that it was a private matter as Hyunwoo usually brushed it off. Personal business. Shurken couldn't figure out why this bum was living at his place and dragging anyone around and not even paying. But he didn't have time to be upset. It was boss appearance day in the guild, and Shurken was off to mop them up. The captive girl had been given first aid, was badly bruised and tortured, and was now sleeping peacefully. Hyunwoo couldn't miss looking at her unusual skull-shaped tattoo, the outline of which seemed familiar to him. It couldn't have been a mere coincidence. The resemblance between them was too great. A long time ago, back when he lived in the tower, he carved himself a skull mask from the bones of a monster. The tattoo on the girl's body repeated the outline of that very same mask with uncanny accuracy. He asked for status, activating the information skill on the girl. The girl was nothing special. Her characteristics were ordinary. Hyunwoo couldn't know her, so he decided to ask around when she woke up. Suddenly, the status window flashed up again, even though he hadn't called it up. Hyunwoo was confused. Everything was happening too fast. The stupid system didn't give him time to prepare. The girl Chobit Av was sitting at a table in an empty room as usual. Hyunwoo didn't understand what she could possibly need. The android was tight-lipped, as usual, and seemed to be coming out of standby mode. And then it beeped in its thin digital voice that someone was on his way. The bewildered hermit clarified who he was talking about, since the V-droid attached so much importance to it. It was about the next rising tourist, the bucketoid girl said seriously. And who is this in-tourist when he shows up? Hyunwoo asked in a concerned voice. Like a priestess of a techno-cult, she summoned a system screen, just like the mad hermits. Unfortunately, the status window showed exactly the same notification that Hyunwoo had already received without any additional data. Hyunwoo urgently made an adjustment by tapping the indicator on the top of his head. He angrily reprimanded the electronic chatterbox for wasting her time since she had nothing new to add. The silver-haired bucketoid started to excuse herself, rubbing her bruised spot. She just couldn't give what the system forbade her. But Av sharply denied all the allegations, saying she still had something to say. Hyunwoo realized that she had called him to warn him about something. The new rising tourist is illegal, much more dangerous than the previous one, and it takes training to battle him. Hyunwoo calmed down and asked the bucketoid Av how exactly he should prepare. He must awaken his magic as soon as possible, or he would be in danger, the shaggy android informed him. But Hyunwoo heard his friend. He was only interested in the ascendant rank, after all. He was an important target. Av answered in the negative, for a battle with a high-ranking illegal would require much more than just awakening magic. High-ranking ones are capable of creating a real apocalypse. It's too early for him to get his hands on those, the girl replied. Another important question remained. Where exactly would the new cleft in space appear? The Vedroid girl let out a negative reply, straining in anticipation of the blow. It's all about the fact that the Ascendant's appearance depended heavily on his abilities and skills. The mad hermit was summarizing their short and productive conversation. It was necessary so as not to miss anything. The android was always being dark and underhanded, which pissed her off a lot, as now she couldn't help it. Hyunwoo felt like smacking the buckethead on the top of his head again, just to blow off steam. Anticipating danger, the android covered his head with his hands, resenting such an injustice. How could he beat a cute little girl like her, a boor with no parental upbringing, blurted out the Chobit girl. Hyunwoo shuddered. It had been a long time since he had been asked about his parents. He barely remembered their faces. He told her that her parents died in a car accident years ago. The frightened android began to bow and apologize, stammering and babbling. But Hyunwoo replaced anger with mercy, his long-forgotten past faintly worried. The shaggy android hung dipping new evaluations and patterns due to this information. The man in front of her, contrary to past assessments, wasn't that bad and just had a difficult childhood. In the Iran Guild headquarters, there was a real commotion and angry shouts. Hyunwoo sat in the middle of the magic circle and lamented because he was promised that once he sat in it, he would immediately feel mana. In his hearts, he swiped his hand across the floor, threatening to erase the magical inscriptions. Much to little So-young's dismay, the circle was worth as much as a palace. The mad hermit wondered if he could be a man without mana. But Seo-yeon ruled out that possibility. All hunters possessed magic in one way or another, she explained tiredly. And there was no one in her practice who couldn't unlock mana in the presence of a mage like her, and with a magical circle of concentration. They continued to argue heatedly. Little Seo-yeon was already exhausted from dealing with him as Shurken came in. The friend inquired, their condition both looking annoyed and frustrated. He found out that Hyunwoo Ta and couldn't unlock mana, even though he had been sitting here for 4 days. He came not only to taunt the hermit, but also to bring him a registered letter. Shurken asked if Hyunwoo had founded a guild, and when he heard that, Seo-yeon also cried out. She was very surprised that Hyunwoo had created a guild and she didn't know anything about it. Hyunwoo created a guild with the name Guardian, gaining several dungeons and a cash bounty. He got a little teased that being on guard wasn't about a crazy hermit. Hyunwoo changed the subject by asking about the hostage girl. The girl with the skull tattoo still hadn't come to her senses. Hyunwoo wasn't happy about this news. He was worried that she might be brain dead and then she's useless. But Shurken calmed him down, saying that she was fine, she was just in deep shock. The only thing left to do was to wait. Hyunwoo squawked like a small child, completely unaware of the feeling the mana was supposed to cause. Pretty Seo-yeon, after trying everything possible, suggested that she seek help from other psychics. Shurken immediately realized who the girl was talking about. The name was familiar to him, Nagaoki Yasumi. Hyunwoo didn't understand anything at all. Everything sounded like Elvish to him. Yimu was told about a female acupuncturist who can awaken the pathways of mana in Hyunwoo. He got excited about such a cool method and looked for information online. But the miracle woman lived in Japan, and one must fly there for a meeting, the hermit found out. He immediately abandoned the idea, and an annoyed wave of his hand, a suspicious crackling sound was heard. Hyunwoo looked at his hand and the source of the noise, and his soul went to his heels. His hand involuntarily erased some of the lines of the circle and destroyed its integrity. Tikai's city, Tobi Hana, thought Shurken, looking at his friend. Oh, this is awkward, thought the mad hermit. He screamed under the lightning discharges, promising to pay for everything. Even Shurken got a kick out of it. There was a battle going on outside a dungeon in Tokyo, the wounded screaming, begging for mercy. The fighters called out to her for help, but the guild leader kept her eyes on her enemy. Naganawa Yasumi, the leader of the Izanami Guild, stood completely defeated. The enemy left them no time to regroup and attacked mercilessly. Yasumi commanded everyone to duck as she spotted the enemy attack. But the jackasses in her squad hesitated. They had succumbed to panic and were not thinking straight. Delaying death.
The enemy's attack swept them away, striking them with lightning discharges.
The head managed to dodge with a deft jump. A blast of lightning passed by. She landed away from the impact zone of the unfathomable magic. The battlefield is littered with corpses and building rubble, with few survivors wounded. Dumbasses, the huntress muttered. You should have jumped. What wasn't clear. Through the noise of destruction, she heard a quiet step in her direction. The dreaded enemy stepped measuredly over her fallen comrades. In his hand, he clutched the heavy straight sword that had cut short so many lives. A tall, long-haired warrior stood over his defeated opponent. The guild leader couldn't find the words to describe his strength. What is he? She asked, looking death in the eyes. The girl was lucky to have dodged, the warrior thought, since that made her worthy of a response. He wondered what name he would introduce himself by. He has many names: Ripper, Destroyer, Scorpion, Thor, Lord Sidious, Electrophoresis. But the long-haired warrior introduced himself as Yong-ma. Push notifications slammed into Yun-woo's face, making sure he didn't miss anything. Rising Tourist appeared in Japan, and the hermit immediately told Shai Ken to get the car ready. They raced quickly to the airport, Shai Ken at the wheel, as usual in his role as personal chauffeur. Intourist has already made a splash in Japan, Hyun-woo learned from the news. He never learned magic and was a little worried about it. Shiken, who was working for free, asked his friend how long. After all, he had just refused to go and immediately agreed. "What's the big deal?" Shiken asked him. "Business as usual," the hermit replied evasively and hurried the coachman away. "Did you at least take the papers?" asked the hermit's free chauffeur. "Documents, multi-passport, hoof prints." Hyun-woo was going through the cash documents from the training tower in his memory. Mustache, paws, and tail, that's his credentials. The insane man with the seniority answered him. A tense silence hung in the room of the Japanese Hunters Association. One of the leaders asked Nakazawa how the woman stayed alive. He had seen her death on the news. "Saved in time," she replied. "The Bekappa artifact had saved her more than once. But she told of their enemy firsthand. He is very powerful." After seeing her death on the first channels, the other hunters dropped their spirits and refused to help. But even if she were alive, there was little they could all do together, the chairman reasoned. No one came to the rescue, and civilian casualties only grew. A familiar face appeared on the broadcast screen from the battlefield. A female acupuncturist recognized this world-famous hunter. The experienced player entered the rink in his nonchalant flip-flops. The mad hermit looked at his opponent appraisingly. The long-haired man also decided to silently play peekaboo. The information skill didn't work on the illegal tourist. "People walk around and then lose their swimming trunks," Hyun-woo said to the illegal. The long-haired man wiggled his blade eloquently instead of 1,000 words, and chopping with his longsword, showing his ID. Hyun-woo tensed. The handwriting appeared illegible and the letters small. The tourist applied a long-range attack and sent him off to read on the sidelines. But the border guard had his own questions and would not accept the documents. A part-time border patrol agent issued a straight-face refusal to an illegal. "Why do you, sir, immediately grab the saber?" asked the illegal. What a nuisance, thought the long-haired man, asking questions. "I decided to introduce myself properly," Chong-ma said, the warrior swinging his sword. He attacked again from long range with a strong attack. Hyun-woo awkwardly ducked down, barely keeping up with his speed. The tourist turned out to be fast. The mad hermit had time to think. But not fast enough to hit it, the hunter recoiled. He discerned the enemy's technique, though he couldn't understand it at a glance. The long-haired man is seen waving once, but it's actually a lot of quick swings. If he gets caught, he'll cut it into thousands of pieces. Hyun-woo slapped his slippers. Close combat is the best thing for him since the opponent only has ranged attacks. Chong-ma blocked a straight punch with his blade sheath, but misses a left to the liver from the guard at half guard. Longshot flew to his corner of the ring and crouched down to rest. But the mad hermit would not let go of his rival, lying down to finish. Chong-ma quietly whispered to himself, "Where is the second phase for the boss?" "How interesting," he said, spitting blood from his shattered lips. The illegal tourist caught fire like a hit transformer. Lightning bolts enveloped him from top to bottom like a Tesla tower. Chong-ma asked the mad border guard a name. So far, no one has resisted him so stubbornly. "So this is the second phase of the boss," Hyun-woo thought as he looked at the lightning discharges. The citizens were well settled in for the viewing. The only thing missing was popcorn. Shiken found out the details. While they were flying to Japan, a rift opened up. A lover of alternative medicine was glad for the reinforcement. Hyun-woo ran away as soon as the board landed, Shiken recalled. And now he's standing on the battlefield with the invasion, Shiken wondered. A vague suspicion crept into him. Could Hyun-woo really know where the rift would be? Hyun-woo dodged the discharges like crazy. He was hopping from side to side like a boar, like a minefield. "What kind of mad skills?" asked the hermit to the enemy. "Are these skills?" the long-haired man replied contemptuously. Chain lightning, sword lightning, aura lightning, the illegal electrician answered him. Nothing he used Chong Ma related to the system. The man connecting the chits moved as if in slow motion. Hyunwoo followed his every move with great difficulty. Dodge or retreat, thought the mad hermit. What to choose? He shifted abruptly, tugging on his flip-flops, grabbed the illegal electrician by his kimono, and pulled him sharply toward him. There was the sound of a bell as they collided foreheads. He might have gotten a concussion, but he got off with a slight scare. Chong Ma rubbed his bruised forehead. Fluttering like a boar, like a bee, Hyunwoo didn't wait. Time for a game of rock, paper, scissors, lizard Spock. His palm turned into a fist. Hyunwoo used a crowning blow. The power of absurdity threw the illegal migrant off with a flash of light. Suddenly he also threw a stone. Hyunwoo got nervous. Hyunwoo. Flashes of discharges blinded the hermit's eyes with pain. Real bosses always fight until the third phase, the illegal electrician said. A halo of a huge circle of mana grew behind Chong Ma's back. Let him try to dodge it, the long-haired warrior said, raising a sheaf of lightning in his hand. The matter smelled fried. The mad hermit became nervous. He tore toward the illegal without waiting for the end of the spell's cast. Thunder God mode on, the illegal electrician swung once, and with half the country without power, there was an explosion. Home theater fans watched the broadcast of the fight, dumbfounded. Real monsters thought Shin Ken as he watched the crazy fight. One sweep of the electrician god scraped the entire site clean with a fan. Good response, the illegal said to the enemy at his feet. Hyunwoo managed to grab onto the electrician's cloak at the last moment and avoided the blow. However, the illegal was called electrophoresis for a reason. Hyunwoo felt a pleasant tingling sensation in his body. The currents warmed him well and stimulated the right points. Push notification system dragged in right during the fight. The prophylactic currents opened up all his chakras and stagnation. Psychic, Hyunwoo thought, and bounced off the illegal tourist. Yongma looked puzzled. He was expecting a different result. Just in case, he began a second cast of killing magic. Chongma's skills were astounding, for they went beyond the system. Hyunwoo remembered that he had read about a similar character in a lot of manga, a strong fighter who had risen to the top of the martial arts. Yongma asked the hermit if he really wanted to continue after what he had seen. But he was not afraid, on the contrary. The electrophoresis stretched his shoulders perfectly. The long-haired man marveled at the guard's boldness, but he did not pity him. Hyunwoo replied that he now knew the power of the dark side of the force. And now he's gonna kick illegal immigrants' ass. Chongma froze. The opponent had just gotten stronger. While Hyunwoo was in the tower and honed his martial prowess like the ancient masters, he could only blindly copy random movement from the Jeonma Manhwa. Now, however, the longtime teacher was right in front of him. His one move was enough for Hyunwoo to realize the essence of the martial arts he was imitating. The confident Chongma froze. He is not the only one who has a third phase. Almost instinctively, he attacked the mad hermit. But in vain, the uninvited student had just surpassed the teacher. Hyunwoo's technique repelled the ascendant's attack with wings of mana. In deference to the teacher and psychic, Hyunwoo decided to reveal all the cards. The technique they used was very simple. Gather mana at one point and blast away. The mad hermit combined the two techniques. He gathered mana and applied the absurdity strike. There was an explosion and everything disappeared in a blinding flash. The copter was filming for a live broadcast high in the sky. When the shockwave reached him, he fell to the ground and crashed. There is only one left on the battlefield, the elephant mountaineer from the movie. The pagoda of the imperial palace was drowning in the sunset rays. The empress watched the broadcast, sitting comfortably on her throne. On the screen, the insane hermit applied the absurdity technique. A shiver ran through her body, from the familiar feeling of madness. The man on the screen is definitely a teacher, the empress realized. 5 years ago, when she first got into the Tower of Learning, even weak monsters could beat a girl to a pulp. Wounded, she despaired and was ready to give up. Kneeling down to accept fate and die was all she could do. But instead of death, salvation came to her. She heard monsters dying. The mad hermit in the skull mask destroyed the zombies in one fell swoop. Later, the hermit taught her how to fight, made her strong. He was like a teacher. The first man she accepted with all her heart and agreed to serve him, a mad hermit teacher. The empress had left the throne. The servants reported that there was only one zone left, on her way to absolute power. In a month, they will take the last enclave, the acolyte said. But this time, the empress will go forward on the cutting edge of the attack. The girl was in a hurry to fulfill the promise she had made to her teacher, to build the world he deserved. Then she could meet him. The apprentice's dreams plunged. Soon the friends were back in Korea, on the first flight back. As soon as they stepped out of the building, they were blinded by camera flashes. A crowd of information-hungry piranhas pounced on them. Hyunwoo told the seagulls to shut up. They were asking too many questions, and he promised that the always balanced Shurken would answer all questions from reporters. Shurken didn't immediately realize the depth of the setup he'd gotten himself into. He's now a chauffeur, a housewife, and a superstar's personal agent and babysitter. It was a good time to run, but reporters surrounded him on all sides, and a friend sneakily threw Shurken to the piranha media. The mad hermit made his way to a friend's apartment, where he lived rent-free. So much trouble with people sticking everywhere, he thought as he threw off his flip-flops. It's good to have a friend who's a fool. Hyunwoo is relying on him. He was met in the living room by a girl with a skull tattoo. She had recovered from her shock. She bowed to him in gratitude for his rescue. From the bottom of her heart, the girl expressed her gratitude. The girl's name was Sun Win, and Hyunwoo listened to her story. A messenger of the pedo guild, Aries sneakily captured the girl as she defended the dungeon. But Hyunwoo was interested in something else, so he asked her about the tattoo on her shoulder. The tattoo on her shoulder is a sign that she is a guild representative. The symbol means all under the sky. The mad hermit gloomed and clarified with the girl what that meant. There is only one sky above all. That's what the master said when beating this tattoo to the minion. Hyunwoo angrily interrupted her story by pounding his fist on the table. The girl shrank back in fear, not knowing what she could have done to anger him. But it wasn't about her at all, the mad hermit explained. He made a mistake in the past and now he's paying for it. The hermit was perplexed as to how the nonsense from the tower had seeped to the surface and come off the lips of another man. A long time ago, when Hyunwoo thought he would leave the tower if he achieved enlightenment in martial arts. Also suffered from 8th grader syndrome, as if he'd been bitten by the king of pathos. He was talking crap, and now some idiot is spreading it through the meaning of tattoos. Bastard! Hyunwoo remembered the negligent student from the tower. This is definitely the simpleton he saved. Now he's the head of an entire guild, and a dark past can come to light. The mad hermit asked the girl to give something to the head. In order for him not to seek a meeting with him, Hyunwoo was terribly angry. A few days later, Hyunwoo sent Sun Win back to China and showed up at the studio. Host Lee Hai-young happily greeted the viewers of her show, recognized the bachelor. A shaggy-haired hermit in gym shoes appeared on the viewers' screens. Tiny Seo Yan almost choked on her coffee when she saw Hyunwoo. They could only wonder why he decided to appear on this show. The gloomy Shurken never came to his senses after the show and didn't want to know what Hyunwoo was up to. Hyunwoo paused. He was certainly used to living in society, but the hermit's habits were making themselves felt. So he bluntly said he came to the show to sell his garage and talk about his guild at the same time. The motherland is calling, said the hermit, all to join his guild. The trio of friends in the living room were left speechless after each of their friends' antics, all of them mucked out. They stared at the pile of boxes in front of them, Shuk-young asking Hyunwoo why he was doing this to them. Hyunwoo excused himself, saying that he himself hadn't expected so many responses to the guild membership. Shiken immediately said, no longer working for free, housewife, agent, driver, now personal assistant. As the friends went through the forms, Hyunwoo promised them access to his dungeons for their help. He was the only one who could ask for such a thing, the heads of the other guilds, Kwan Seo told him. Creating a guild is a tedious endeavor. There are a lot of things to keep track of, so why would a hermit need a guild? Kwan Seo asked. Money, and money again, followed the immediate reply. Hyunwoo earns money by clearing dungeons, and now he also has his own. Creating a guild will bring even more profit, replied the hermit. Someone wants to make up for a difficult childhood, little Seo-yeon suggested. Hyunwoo took a quick look at one of the hunter's profiles and immediately rejected the candidate. The big guy roared like a bear, indignant. He shouted at Hyunwoo, did he read his resume? He is the most experienced C-class hunter, so why was he rejected? The mad hermit resented it in return. He didn't like the candidate a hell of a lot. Fuck off, dog! He yelled across the guild office at the fool. The most famous hunter from the rank dungeons, left rejected and dejected. The mob boss stared at the status screen. He was skeptical. The Vedroid girl asked him out again after defeating the illegal. This time, instead of a guardian rank, he got an information skill pump. Vedroid added a new ability to the skill and pumped up the push notifications. Personality check, Hyunwoo wondered. The scanner was now doing the work of a psychoanalyst. He didn't know how to use the improvement at first, but then applied it in his first interview. Hyunwoo looked carefully at the girl who was squirming in front of him, and applied the new skill. A system window lit up above the huntress. A characterization fell out, a conciliator ambiguously, Hyunwoo thought. He looked at the other hunters sitting nearby and applied the skill. The dummies sat as still as a string. A window fluttered over each one. Sacrificial personality, strength in friendship, Hyunwoo was satisfied with it. He accepted all three. The hunters nearly died of happiness. The lazy hermit specially selected the hardest working ones to dump all the work on them. How can a guild interview go so quickly? Asked free half-time driver Shi-Ken. Hyunwoo replied to him that he just picked hard-working simpletons. Honest enough, that's enough. The mad hermit didn't test their abilities because the fight would still be his. However, not a single S-rank hunter came on, the hermit noticed. S-rank is rare, explained driver Shi-Ken. There are only a few thousand of them in the whole world. He told the hermit that while he was away, his friends had climbed to the top 200 of the world. If a hunter is on this list, he will be recognized everywhere, and everyone will want to hire him. Hyunwoo was surprised. His friends had really climbed high in the rankings. The hermit noticed another oddity. A lot of S-rank hunters were missing from the catalogs. They're dead, explained Hyunwoo, his free driver. Hyunwoo wondered, so many S-rankers had died. Are they really such weaklings? Normal hunters are highly dependent on the rank they have raised in the tower. After leaving the tower, you can raise no higher than 3 ranks. To overcome the ability barrier, you need an ST+ rank artifact, which can be obtained at the bottom of the labyrinth. There is a deadly battle going on in the maze for these items, and it has long since become a graveyard of S-ranked items. Another way to get the artifact is to kill the owner outside the labyrinth, Guide Shi-Ken said. Such killers are called hunter killers, and they are removed from all lists. Hyunwoo recalled a few individuals he had dealt with in the past. They were the type. The crazy bastards of Ares, the hermit said. His enemies used dirty methods. A mad hermit has appeared in the apparent swamp. In a deal with Ares, it is now the property of Hyunwoo. He took quite a look around the new property, where he had already been once before. Hyunwoo left free driver Shi-Ken in the car and went to mop up the boss that came out of vacation. Skin, crocodile skin, bag, boots, and wallet, he hummed happily. Suddenly, out of nowhere, a mad hermit appeared. The idlers on watch were very surprised at this visit. The guards recognized him, and Hyunwoo recommended that they cuckoo quietly. After all, he is a serious man, and he has 2 whole flip-flops. The boys abruptly remembered the courtesy course from the mad hermit. This is his dungeon now, and he can go about his business here, Hyunwoo said. One slacker yapped something about a transfer not going through, but quickly quieted down. Hyunwoo strolled through familiar places, looking for a valuable hide. Suddenly, the mad hermit met a man, in a zone with a boss no one else goes to. A man with a gun in a hip holster seemed to be waiting for the hermit. He said a polite hello and addressed him by name. The hunter knew who he was dealing with. Hyunwoo grimaced. Had the Ares Guild decided to crap in his slippers again? Guild, the passerby confirmed, and 3 more jumped out into the clearing beside them. Oh, another troop of cosplayers, Hyunwoo thought as the pandemonium group got into picture poses. They acted out scenes from the past over something, in front of the hunter. Allegedly, they're formidable killers, work without witnesses, everyone knows them. The 4 goons lined up again and called out their names. Hyunwoo didn't even bother to listen to them. At last, he waited for the end of the dismal performance of the strange company. The girl in the group said she was a high-level mage. This caught Hyun-woo's attention. But the haughty runt boasted, supposedly Hyun-woo must have known the great Mamazelle. The mad hermit immediately shaved it off. These people haven't gotten a courtesy course in a long time. Shorty couldn't stand it and attacked first, dementia and courage. A very long cast began to cover up this delay, the short one again praising the great self. A large magic circle appeared under Hyun-woo's feet. The spell had finally worked. Purple tentacles grew out of the circle and entangled the mad hermit. Can draw circles, Hyun-woo concluded, while the girl was talking nonsense, like it wasn't the time to ask obvious questions. The mad hermit sighed. Teaching fools only spoils them. He was asking to see if he should kill theatergoers or not. The boastful runt was horrified. The magic should have paralyzed Hyun-woo. Shorty's friends from the corpse rushed to her rescue in a bunch. The sun never set over China. The remote town drowned in the rays of eternal sunset. The underground bunker of the Wind-Eye Guild was completely destroyed. The boss of the guild and the bunker didn't live up to the invaders' expectations at all. "And that's the main base," the girl said in a cold and cruel voice. Disappointed, the Empress burned her boss with a scarlet gaze. "How arrogant," mumbled the final boss of the level tiredly. All killed. He was left alone. The main forces would be coming up soon. The beauty looked at him confidently. Mockery, the wounded pedo-guild enemy, was angry. Better death, he thought. The warrior slashed with his heavy sword as soon as the fierce beauty came close. He was horrified at how easily she dodged, as if she'd been expecting a blow. Though he's not worthy, but since the Empress wants to finish it faster, she'll do it. Rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock sounded words of power. She used a technique taught to her by the mad hermit. The power of absurdity, the greatest martial arts technique. The Empress took out the final boss in one hit. "What a lovely day, what a lovely day," hummed the mad hermit's apprentice. "Don't look for him," that's what the teacher conveyed to the Empress. Sun Win's henchwoman met the teacher before her. This made her angry. But he was waiting for his apprentice, the Empress realized, and that was welcome. The teacher's words mean not to seek him out until all vows are fulfilled, until she builds a place worthy of heaven. Hyun-woo arrived at Cutie Seo Yeon's guild. He owes a lot to the huntress. Pretty Seo Yeon was very surprised by his appearance after meeting him at the entrance. He brought a useful shorty to fix the magic circle. He asked the slave just in case if she was sure she could fix the circle, and the captive nodded vigorously. Shorty naively asked if they would definitely let the enchantress go after that. Hyun-woo smirked and said to proceed. Pretty Seo Yeon recognized free slave power, famous assassin wizard tentacle lover. How could he bring a murderer here? Little Seo Yeon asked. She was very surprised to hear his story about the puppet corpse of the pandemonium cosplayers. Hyun-woo's characteristics are definitely not okay, since he easily handled S-rank cosplayers, wondered the cutie. Hyun-woo thought they were weird too, but what can you do if the system has crooked developers? Even a Vedroid in this matter was powerless until the Guardian rank was raised. In any case, the runt is not dangerous. Will plow on pain of death until exhaustion, soothed the mad hermit. Kneeling on her knees, the runt begged for her life, for she is a reaper, a singer, and will do everything. To fix the circle, the short man did not need a staff or other tools. Hyun-woo handed the beautiful Seo Young the short cosplayer's belongings, staff, and robe. Leaving the new slave in the care of pretty So-yeon, the hermit went about his business. A satisfied Hyun-woo shopped for gifts for the Ares Guild. Worth giving them away, he thought, as he looked at the enemy guild's tower. The slippers of doom showed up on the horizon to bloody rains, astrologers reported. After all the events, the shaggy-haired hermit had 100% recognizability. The goofy goons stirred like boars in a pen when he entered. The funny people haven't yet realized that it's time to do the legwork or have to carry them off piece by piece in the building. Hyun-woo asked if Chief Hook Seong-woo was there and pulled out the gifts. The stick of justice, he wrote on the toy hammer. The polite hermit asked if everyone had health insurance. The game was called Hit the Mole, and Hyun-woo quickly got the hang of it. The citizens liked the gifts, They fell senseless with joy. The mad hermit swatted the guild hunters like flies. A couple guards stood in the way. Probably the bravest ones here, thought Hyunwoo. Perhaps they've already been signed off sick leave, he asked, the fair hermit. The dummies slowly flocked to the floor, out of fear of the common toy. Hyuk Seok listened to the call on speakerphone. Big trouble was coming his way. And with each shriek of useless goons, the buttocks clenched tighter. The mad hermit came to them with a single toy hammer. It's a shame they won't be able to wash it off for a long time if it's in the news. Whether to call the heads of the guild, the slippery headmaster fidgeted with worry. There was a gentle knock on the door, no time to think. The slippery principal popped out to greet the honored guests. How many years, how many winters, a fair hunter came in and said hello. The slippery headmaster's stomach rumbled violently at the unpleasant thoughts. Nakosha suckling, the fair hermit got straight to the point, and sat his opponent down for further business negotiations. A pile of books sprinkled on the empty head. Not long ago, the partners discussed compensation for damages, and here we go again, Hyunwoo said. As soon as one costumed group finished touring, Hyuk Seok sent the next. Panday something there was a group of assassins, the fair hunter marveled. Hyuk Seok wanted to answer, but clenched his teeth tighter, just in case they'd hit him again. It's too late to drink Borjomi, he resigned himself. Even S-rank is no match for crazy Hyunwoo. Hyuk Seok wondered what would be taken from him this time and offered compensation. How good it was that they had established an intelligible form of communication, rejoiced the fair hermit. 20 billion won, even his mouth turned sour, Hyuk Seok agreed. The chief instrument of negotiation fluttered in the hermit's hand, to land over the head of a no-nonsense Director Ares. Let him send anyone he wants, as long as he's willing to pay the bills, the mad hermit warned. Have him call an ambulance for useless knuckleheads, the hermit said one last time, and left the slippery director to streamline in a corner after business negotiations. The vengeful but rich goon pounded his fist on the floor. He liked that rake so much he wanted to get a third time. To deal with Hyunwoo, even S-class hunters aren't enough. You have to look in a different league, the director rattled on. He couldn't ask the main office. That would show his weakness. But there was definitely a solution. The fifth man on the world list is a fighter from China, Dragon Emperor. The 8th floor was ablaze with fire, its guards doing battle with the invaders. The last of them was barely on his feet, badly wobbled. He looked at his opponent in horror, feeling death at his back. He winced. In front of him, riding a hellish millipede, sat a girl demon. This city belongs to her now, the pointy-eared demoness said. The barbarian warrior, enduring the pain, refused to surrender. The demoness laughed as if she had heard an amusing joke. One step, she whispered, and the flow of mana went in circles. The barbarian warrior rushed at her to interrupt the terrifying technique. Taking another step, she simply stepped forward, unleashing more and more of her strength. The barbarian in the fur hat screamed in hellish pain. He was being torn from the inside out. The third step crushed the guardian warrior with a press, shredding his insides. The fourth step blew the city clean up, demolished it with an explosion. Hundreds of residents turned to ash with their last breath. The demoness stepped into the 5th circle of hell, her technique. A pillar of flame and mana, as bright as a second sun, illuminated the ashes of the 8th floor. The horned, pointy-eared demoness smiled contentedly at the job well done. A handful of ashes that vanished in the wind, all that was left where she walked. Only 5 steps out of 10 that there is in the technique, so she'll have to change her name. The demoness smiled wickedly and spoke Legion forward. An army of huge monsters rose at her command and headed towards the tall tower. Hyunwoo read the news lying on the couch. As soon as he got home, the gift distribution had already been written about. People were gossiping about this and that, about how badly Hyunwoo had demolished the Ares Guild with a single hammer. 47 frags, said the homeless hermit to the cautious Shiken, the hammer of justice lying nearby. Shiken feared that Ares might press charges and take Hyunwoo into custody. Nonsense, remarked the mad hermit of justice. It's all self-defense. He's not guilty of anything. Yes, and the weapon was a toy hammer, Hyunwoo objected. But how many people went to the other side of the world in the process? Shiken asked. But the hermit brushed it off. Nothing like that would happen, he punched lightly. Hyunwoo jumped up like a shot, barely glancing at the time. He informed Shuken that it was time for his lessons, and if he was late, he would be stripped of his bonus. Shuken heard something about the lectures in Japan, so he asked if it was about the lectures, because Hyunwoo had initially said no, but now he's changed his mind. 50 million won, shown Hyunwoo, money motivates anyone. He got a push notification of another illegal to deal with, right during class. A group of goons followed him and filmed his every move and word. Nonsense, brushed aside the fair hunter. Even if the world is in danger, that's no reason to give up money. And he continued his crazy lectures on how to catch the boss with his bare hands. Good thing without an exam. Hyunwoo hesitated. The time of the android invitation updated twice. At the meeting, Hyunwoo flooded the bucket list with questions. The new illegal had shown up so soon, and he hadn't even promoted the rank for Youngma. The right to the right information didn't go up, but he got something. The silver-haired bucketoid bargained. And what are those? The Mad Hermit wondered. Vedroid was in a hurry to give him information about the new illegal alien because Hyunwoo had a generous reward waiting for him. This time the illegal is not alone. He comes with the entire diaspora of rubber muzzies. Hyunwoo remembered that the first illegal tourist was also accompanied by a wave of monsters. But the Vedroid countered that the monsters were created by the system that time just to help the weak illegal. However, they are a weak support group and can only crush in numbers. They cannot be called friends, Av said. The new illegal was mid-level, slightly stronger than the previous one. Hyunwoo was surprised to hear this. Electrophoresis wasn't a weakling. Vedroid confirmed. Lately, she had been making strides in intelligence. Hyunwoo cheered up by defeating the illegals. He could finally upgrade his guardian rank and access to the system. In a hurry, he returned to Little Seo Yeon's guild. The illegals were closing in. Hyunwoo knocked on the door and asked them how the magic circle was doing. The little witch told the hermit not to break the property, but he blamed it on bad habits. Pretty Seo Yeon asked him why he came. The hermit replied that of course to check the slave power. Short and tentacle-loving, she was almost up to the task, and even improved the magic circle. Great, thought the mad hermit, and gave her another task. The slave must not rest. Shorty's main skill, teleport, so he had her draw a teleport circle. Pretty Seo Yeon was surprised, such a skill in a captive. He asked the assassin why she didn't run away, and she said she couldn't do it without the staff. She needs the help of the magic circle to escape, so if she wanted to escape, she would use it. Realizing how her words sounded, the short girl became nervous. She excused herself when Hyunwoo came another text message, "Baby." Soher asked the hermit where he was going, and he had just figured out the right place thanks to the spamming system. Germany met the illegals in full force, right before the rift. Useless hunters offered to surrender to the lolly demoness in exchange for a pardon, but the toothy little rascal only showed her fangs. "Can't she see how strong they are here?" the goon hunter shouted. The chancellor of sausage and beer lovers watched the broadcast from the safety of the bunker. He guarded the rear securely for the men on the front lines and was very worried about them. "So it's just about numbers?" the wily demoness asked. "How great that they believe in the power of love and friendship," balked the horny one. "If you are a force," said the lowly demon, "we are a race." The rubbernecking diaspora of illegals sprinted forward. The dummies were scared. They usually beat half a pint of dark, not the barbell at the gym. The horned demoness took a long time to introduce her title and called herself the leader of the rubber muzzle squad, Horns and Spears. The warriors trembled, fear settled securely in their hearts. A parody of a shy hulud stood up on his haunches in front of a bunch of goons. A vicious mashup of sausage and crab sticks strode by with red headlights. And then she's just driven into the ground. Spice mass flew. Hyunwoo was looking at the tickets and was visibly nervous. The plane would take 11 hours to fly. The circle could be done in 5. He hurried the slave. Little Seo Yun was reading the news when she noticed something disturbing. "There's a rift in Germany," she said with all her pretty face. The mad hermit indifferently replied that he knew everything. An open request for help was all over the news. Hyunwoo saw it himself. His name was trending everywhere. Sweet Seo Yeon excitedly asked him if he would stop the disaster this time, too. She looked at him in surprise, as if seeing him for the first time. Even though she was older now, he was still like a big brother to her. But was he always so altruistic? Little Seo Young asked herself. Another bizarre video has been tossed up from the network news. The source of the rift offered a wager, the headline read. The horny, lowly bestie demoness offered an argument, playfully wiggling her hips. The rules are as simple as chicken pickin'. She licked her sharp tongue. She will stay at the fault line for exactly 1 day. If she is defeated, she will refuse illegal immigration. But if the guards fail, she will burn city after city. The blonde bestie smiled confidently and said she'd be waiting. In a secure bunker in the rear, the terrified chancellor prayed. The devil had come for him. He was puzzled where defense budgets had been divided, what had been done before, though he knew what, he himself had been involved. The disaster had already taken 20,000 lives, and the casualties were mounting. Praised S-rank hunters had already become fodder for monsters. A request for international assistance also failed. The official's cell phone vibrated in his pocket. He had been waiting for this call. The official immediately picked up the phone with the chancellor's consent. He had just gotten some good news and didn't believe it right away. Help was on the way, the same hunter from Korea, 40 gigel to Fürsterdalbude. The chancellor heard great news. The hunter who killed Zhong Ma in Japan will soon arrive with help. The teleport triggered. A pillar of purple light threw Hyunwoo onto the roof of the building in the center of the cleft. The hermit liked the free magic thing created by the labors of slaves. In one fell swoop, he was in Germany for a carnival of giant monsters. The living statue of Buddha creaked out a welcome greeting to the new viewer. Hyunwoo couldn't stand the grinding of stone teeth and immediately knocked them out with a duty kick. But it turns out the illegal monster carnival was organized by some wimps. With one leap, he climbed onto the back of another monster and ran down the back of a sausage with crab sticks and an ugly face. The monster also turned out to be weak. It seems they were only brought along for the carnival. The blow exploded on the rubber face, sending it into a deep knockdown. Border guard Hyunwoo moved closer to interrogate the illegal alien. We're the leader of the rubber-face diaspora and documents demanded by the border guard. Illegal face huffed papers left at home because the behemoth has paws, using drones, the media broadcast to people all over the world. Lowly, the demoness with the strange pronunciation, was waiting, as promised in the video, in the center of the square. When the 9th floor border patrol officer on duty arrived, showed up dust-free, the illegal tourist of a crazy hermit. The demoness looked young but spoke like an ancient old woman, Hyunwoo remarked. There's a lot of murmuring going on. The demoness didn't like the mad hermit's treatment. She broke all the huts. Who will rebuild them? Said Hyunwoo, the border guard in charge. Lowly demon freaked out. The enemy in front of her is either too brave or just plain stupid, she said. To which the mad hermit offered to find out for himself. She's not fast, the demoness said, but she'll make an exception for the sake of an insolent border guard. Lowly the demon stood up from her makeshift throne, jokes aside. Is the young man as good as he says he is? She approached the mad guard. 5 tops for Yashur, 7 for the bogatir, and how many he can handle, muttered the lowly demon. Hyunwoo could hardly understand the illegal immigrant's speech, but he didn't call for an interpreter, as negotiations would end in a fight anyway. First stop, the horny lowly beast smirked and took 1 step towards Hyunwoo. Second stop, the little bare feet of the demoness took a 2nd step. A tight life for demons, not even shoes, thought the border guard. He felt an unusual strength. The demoness was using a clever trick. A strange feeling was pressing down on the mad hermit. No enema but pressure, he wondered. Hyunwoo felt the mana around her behaving strangely. He was pinned to the ground. The mana pressure expanded and ripped the space ever more violently as the demoness took the 3rd step. With each step, the mana ejection increased, the mad hermit realized, on the 4th step. The border guard immediately decided to move to apprehension and unleashed his strongest technique. Red mana enveloped his body, gathering into a halo behind his back. Lowly Demon's 6th move caused a tsunami in the mana field. The 7th stripped Hyunwoo of his mana control. The demoness pressured and expanded his mana field. The mad hermit felt himself being torn to pieces. But he could still move, and rushed forward to stop the lowly demon's technique. Stop 8 coined the dream of a lover of women's feet, taking a step towards the meeting. Hunwoo applied the crowning funeral kick with his foot. Apprehension was out of the question, only elimination. But the familiar feeling of a blow to the head didn't appear. The horned beast playfully caught the border